Well, it's early in this election year, but ads are already rolling out targeting those Democrats who support Obamacare. In an aggressive campaign ahead of the midterm elections, they're calling out House and Senate lawmakers in at least a dozen states by name for standing behind the Affordable Care Act. Here's one focusing on North Carolina Democratic Senator Kay Hagan. Watch.
Hagan continues to push for Obamacare. Hagan supports waivers for friends of Obama and special treatment for Congress and their staffs. And who gets stuck with the bill? Families and small businesses. Kay Hagan, taking care of Washington insiders, not North Carolina families.
But are they effective? Let's talk about it with Lynn Sweet, the Washington bureau chief at the Chicago Sun-Times. Charlie Hurt is a columnist for the Washington Times. I guess, Lynn, this is an echo of what Democrats in the Obama campaign did to Mitt Romney early in the last election, putting out a bunch of ads that characterized him in a very negative way and trying to establish him, the perception of him as this sort of out-of-touch rich guy before voters really thought much about the issues.
Well, one of the things that early advertising does is, in a sense, set the narrative, and that's what these Republican and Republican allied groups are trying to do. They are trying to put the Democrat on the defensive, and because of the bad start of Obamacare with the website not working, it is harder for some to defend it at this early stage. Now, I think the jury is not out, and we could get to it in this segment. There is another side to be said on this, but in terms of the ads, there is a powerful case to be made that if you are an opponent to Obamacare, you have the reality. It's not going to go away, so you have to figure out a way to attack a Democrat. Finding the faults in Obamacare early on is one technique to do it.
And Charlie, Obamacare passed with virtually no Republican support. It's pretty hard for Democrats to point fingers the other way and say, it wasn't our fault.
Yeah, John, and I think that's the key point in terms of why this is such an effective strategy for Republicans to use against Democrats, because it did pass on such bitterly partisan lines. They can, Republicans can go after Democrats and go after them wholeheartedly without any fear of damaging any of their own in the process. And I think that it really does put Democrats in a very defensive position. And quite frankly, I think that from a government policy standpoint, it goes to show it supports one of the biggest criticisms of Obamacare, which is that if you're going to pass something that is this widespread, this sweeping, this massive a change for people in their very personal lives, it should be done on a major bipartisan, broad bipartisan basis. And this wasn't. And I think that the Democrats are, President Obama won't be paying for it, but a lot of Democrats in Congress are going to pay for that strategy.
Lynn, the president and his advisors seem to feel that by the time the election rolls around, that Obamacare is going to be all ironed out, the problems are going to be water under the bridge, and a campaign like this is not going to be effective. What do you think?
Well, I think that it will be too soon to say that every problem will be taken care of by November, and some people still have to get through primaries, and those dates are staggered throughout the nation, and for every state has a different schedule. But there is a case to be made that the people who are finding coverage for the first time, who couldn't get any kind of health insurance policy, whose kids could stay on the policy. I know some of your viewers are familiar with some of this, but for those people who benefit, that's going to be a counterweight to the people who may find fault with it. And those would be people who find that they have policies that are more expensive than they are used to or anticipated. But certainly I want to underscore what Charlie said. Just as a political technique, it makes a lot of sense if you're a Republican, you have no votes on your side who have voted for it, to attack a Democrat at this stage of the game. But you have to reckon, will this be an unpopular program as time goes by? And I think in November things may be a little different. So you have to just be a little careful in how you calibrate these anti-Obama campaigns.
And these, it should be pointed out, are focusing especially on Senate races in which where Democrats represent states that voted Republican in the last presidential election, that kind of thing. Mary Landrieu in Louisiana is facing this kind of attack. Kay Hagan, we saw that clip from North Carolina. Mark Begich in Alaska. They are all getting hammered on this score. So how do they answer, Charlie?
Well, and just to continue on with what you were saying right there, not only are these ads effective in those particular targeted states, but the issue of Obamacare as a broader issue about the government thinking that it's the answer to all of the problems that Americans face, that issue, that larger issue, is a very good issue for Republicans to run on. And you see in a very red state like Nebraska, where this guy Ben Sass has come out of absolutely nowhere and become a real tour de force among conservatives because because he's an expert on health care, and as he tells voters, he has read the entire Obamacare bill and he can really tear it apart. And this sort of thing gets enormous traction among conservatives, and not just conservatives, among sort of normal centrist voters who just kind of don't like the idea of the government telling them what to do, or don't like the idea of government that the government is the only answer to all of our problems.
Yeah, we still have about 10 months to go. It's till the midterm elections, but the ads are already on the air. Charlie Hurt, Lynn Sweet, thank you both.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.